Welcome to Jersey Reads the Classics, an audiobook podcast delving into the finest works of our literary masters. Unfortunately, it's read by this woman.
What the hell? Who cares? Let's go on an adventure.
Hello, and welcome back to Jersey Reads the Classics with me, your host, Rosie DeCandia. Well, my friends, thank you so much for rejoining me, and I hope you are enjoying the classic holiday tale, A Christmas Carol, because I am. We haven't even gotten to the deep goods. So without any further ado, just a quick recap, even though I don't do them. He's now met with the first spirit of the night, who looks like a man-child, and yet now we've seen that Scrooge, we've gotten a little vision of Scrooge as a child, and he starts bawling like a baby. So Scrooge right now is given the time and the moment to cry it out, all the trauma, all the drama. So we're just gonna let him have his moment. He had his moment. So let's return to A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. The spirit touched him on the arm and pointed to his younger self, intent upon his reading. Suddenly, a man in foreign garments, wonderfully real and distinct to look at, stood outside the window with an axe stuck in his belt and leading by the bridle an ass laden with wood. "Why, it's Ali Baba!" Scrooge exclaimed in ecstasy. "It's dear old honest Ali Baba. Yes, I know. One Christmas time, when yonder solitary child was left here all alone, he did come for the first time, just like that. Poor boy. And Valentine," said Scrooge, "and his wild brother Orson, there they go. And what's his name? Who was put down in his drawers asleep at the gate of Damascus? Don't you see him? And the Sultan's groom turned upside down by the Janai? There he is upon his head. Serve him right. I'm glad of it. What business had he to be married to the princess?" To hear Scrooge expending all the earnestness of his nature on such subjects in a most extraordinary voice between laughing and crying, and to see his heightened and excited face, would have been a surprise to his business friends in the city indeed. Okay, so now he's having a full recollection of when he was a child, right? He's reading Ali Baba or whatever because he's reading, and he's having a full recollection and in splendor. Isn't that nice when I have those nostalgic moments. You know what? It can be the littlest memory and it just brings back so much joy. So it's just kind of interesting how that does that to us. And I think the older we get, obviously, we become nostalgic, all right? Come on, that's the point. But at least we have memories. We have memories, the good ones. "There's the parrot," cried Scrooge. "Green body and yellow tail with the thing like a lettuce growing out of the top of his head. There he is. Poor Robin Crusoe. He called him when he came home again after sailing around the island. Poor Robin Crusoe. Where have you been, Robin Crusoe?" The man thought he was dreaming, but he wasn't. It was the parrot, you know. There goes Friday, running for his life to the little creek. "Hallo, hoop, halloo." Then, with a rapidity of transition very foreign to his usual character, he said in pity for his former self, "Poor boy," and cried again. Oh, Scrooge. See, this is where we look at somebody and we have to find pity because we don't know what's made somebody mean. And also, I'm not saying you have to condone or accept their terrible ways, but you know what? We all have a story, right? This is what this is really affirming to all of us. We're not all, we're not all born dicks. We get trained that way. We also get like drama and trauma. And the thing is, if you don't work that shit out, you end up like Ebenezer Scrooge, a shell of a human being. But at least Ebenezer is getting the gift of the three ghosts. Okay. "I wish," Scrooge muttered, putting his hand in his pocket and looking about him after drying his eyes with his cuff. "But it's too late now." "What is the matter?" asked the spirit. "Nothing," said Scrooge. "Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something. That's all." Oh, see, he's already feeling remorse and regret that he didn't give the guy that was singing that he shooed away and shut the door in his face any money. So we haven't even gotten to the meat of the story, and already he's feeling a little bit of the remorse and understanding. like it. The ghost smiled thoughtfully and waved its hand, saying as it did so, "Let us see another Christmas." Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked, fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling, and the naked laths were shown instead. But how all this was brought about, Scrooge knew no more than you do. He only knew that it was quite correct, that everything had happened so that there he was, alone again, naturally. I loved that song from the 70s. When all the other boys had gone home for the jolly holidays. See, we are getting a glimpse into Scrooge's childhood, and it ain't pretty. It ain't pretty, and neither is Scrooge. But he's also not pretty or good looking because he's not nice inside. And remember, I've told you this before, whatever's going on inside gets shown on the face. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. He was not reading now, but walking up and down despairingly. Scrooge looked at the ghost, and with a mournful shaking of his head, glanced anxiously towards the door. It opened, and a little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in and putting her arms about his neck and often kissing him, addressed him as her dear, dear brother. "I have come to bring you home, dear brother," said the child, clapping her tiny hands and bending down to laugh. "To bring you home, home, home." "Home, little Fran?" returned the boy. "Yes," said the child, brimful of glee. "Home for good and all, home forever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be, that home's like heaven." So now we just get a little clue that Scrooge has a dick for a father, because now he's kinder than he ever used to be. Okay, all right, Fran. She's like the Daily News. Come on, girl, give us the scoop. Okay. "Heaven, he spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home. And he said, yes, you should, and sent me in a coach to bring you. And you're to be a man," said the child, opening her eyes, "and are never to come back here. But first, we're to be together all Christmas long and have the merriest time in all the world." "You are quite a woman, little Fran," exclaimed the boy. "You got your sweet ass on that. She loves her brother, and she parlayed that from the father." "Welcome to my world of noise. If it isn't the helicopters or my neighbors or a dog or air conditioning, it's something." She clapped her hands and laughed and tried to touch his head, but being too little, laughed again and stood on tiptoe to embrace him. Then she began to drag him in a childish eagerness towards the door, and he, nothing loath to go, accompanied her. A terrible voice in the hall cried, "Bring down Master Scrooge's box there." And in the hall appeared the schoolmaster himself, who glared on Master Scrooge with a ferocious condescension, and threw him into a dreadful state of mind by shaking hands with him. He then conveyed him and his sister into the veriest old well of a shivering best parlor that ever was seen, where the maps upon the wall and the celestial and terrestrial globes in the windows were waxy with cold. Here he produced a decanter of curiously light wine. What do you mean, he's going to let them offer them wine, or is it just for himself? And a block of curiously heavy cake, and administered installments of those dainties to the young people at the same time, sending out a servant to offer a glass of something to the postboy, who answered that he thanked the gentleman, but if it was the same tap as he had tasted before, he had rather not. Master Scrooge's trunk being by this time tied on the top of the chaise, the children bade the schoolmaster goodbye right willingly. So why did he sound so bitchy and scary, and all of a sudden now he's giving them cake and wine? It's Europe. Kids can drink wine at any point. I know as a kid I had to drink wine. Whenever we cooked fish, my father made fish, my mother made fish, she'd be like, "Have wine, it clears away the bacteria." So I've been drinking wine as a kid. Now I don't drink it at all. Isn't that funny? I don't even like alcohol. Whatever. Better for me, better for my liver. Anyway, where was I? All right. And getting into it, drove gaily down the garden sweep, the quick wheels dashing the hoarfrost and snow from off the dark leaves of the evergreens like spray. Yes, poetry in motion. Okay. Always a delicate creature whom a breath might have withered, said the ghost. But she had a large heart. So she had, cried Scrooge. You're right. I will not gainsay it. Spirit, God forbid. She died a woman, said the ghost, and had, as I think, children. Oh, Franny's dead. One child, Scrooge returned. True, said the ghost. Your nephew. Remember his friendly, loving nephew? Just like Fran. Scrooge seemed uneasy in his mind and answered briefly, yes. Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city, where shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches battled for the way, and all the strife and tumult of a real city were. It was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time again. But it was evening, and the streets were lighted up. Light 'em up. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it. Know it, said Scrooge. Was I apprenticed here? They went in. At sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig sitting behind such a high desk that if he had been 2 inches taller, he must have knocked his head against the ceiling. Scrooge cried in great excitement. Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart! It's Fezziwig alive again! Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his waistcoat, laughed all over himself, from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial voice, Yo-ho there, Ebenezer! Dick! Yeah, there we go. He called Ebenezer a dick, he really did, and he's saying the name Dick, but the best is this, Ebenezer Dick. Ebenezer did become a dick. Remember, your words are very powerful. And he called Ebenezer, then he said Dick. And what did Ebenezer turn into? He's a dick. And I don't mean Richard. Scrooge's former self, now grown a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow prentice. Dick Wilkins, to be sure, said Scrooge to the ghost. Bless me, yes, there he is. He was very much attached to me, was Dick. Poor Dick. Dear, dear. Yo-ho, my boys, said Fezziwig. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up, cried old Fezziwig with a sharp clap of his hands, before a man can say Jack Robinson. You wouldn't believe how those two fellows went at it. They charged into the street with the shutters. 1, 2, 3, had them up in their places. 4, 5, 6, bottom and pinned them. 7, 8, 9, and came back before you could have got to 12, panting like racehorses. Hilly-ho, cried old Fezziwig, skipping down from the high desk with wonderful agility. Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here. Hilly-ho, Dick. Cheer up, Ebenezer. Oh, man, that sounds like a nice, fun guy. I mean, listen, look at this. Ebenezer got rescued from being in that dark and dreary school, and then he now has a young man. He's an apprentice to this nice man, Fezziwig. You got to snap out of being a dick, Ebenezer. I wonder what ever happened to poor Dick Wilkins. All right, clear away. There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away or couldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off, as if it were dismissed from public life forevermore. The floor was swept and watered. The lamps were trimmed. Fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to set upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book, and went up to the lofty desk, and made an orchestra of it, and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers, whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid with her cousin, the baker. In came the cook with her brother's particular friend, the milkman. Oh, the cook was getting on with the milkman. Remember they say the milkman's baby? In came the boy from over the way, who was suspected of not having board enough from his master, trying to hide himself behind the girl from next door, but one who was proved to have had her ears pulled by her mistress. In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. In they all came, anyhow and everyhow. So everybody came in, even people that weren't invited. But the Fezziwigs don't care because they're generous, and it's Christmas time, and that's a great time, especially to be. I think Christmas time should be every day of the year. You should always be generous when you can. But anyway, I digress. We're going off on the whole woo-woo. Okay, where was I? All right. Away they all went, 20 couple at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, round in various stages of affectionate grouping. Old top couple always turning up in the wrong place, new top couple starting off again as soon as they got there, all top couples at last, and not a bottom one to help them. When this result was brought about, old Fezziwig, clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out, "Well done!" And the fiddler plunged his hot face into a pot of porter especially provided for that purpose. Okay. But scorning rest upon his reappearance, he instantly began again, though there were no dances yet, as if the other fiddler had been carried home exhausted on a shutter, and here were a brand new man resolved to beat him out of sight or perish. People were like, anyway, there were more dances, and there were forfeits, and more dances, and there was cake, and there was a great piece of cold roast, and there was a great piece of cold boiled, and there were mince pies and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fiddler, an artful dog, mind, the sort of man who knew his business better than you or I could have ever told him, struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig. Top couple, too, with a good stiff piece of work cut out for them. 3 or 4 and 20 pair of partners, people who were not to be trifled with, people who would dance and had no notion of walking. Okay. We're going to stop there because the next thing is Fezziwig's actual ball, and more shit's going to happen there, okay? Well, look at this. Our little Ebenezer Scrooge gets saved from a dismal upbringing, even though we do find out that Scrooge had a nasty father, but then again, he changed. So Scrooge goes home to live with his lovely sister, and it looks like Scrooge is a happy young man. So we have gotten to the point of what has even jaded him more on Christmas. But okay, he's still a little scarred, but he's not. And the thing is this, what I love about it is, you know, Scrooge has been surrounded by love. He had his sister, then he went back home. We didn't talk about the home after that, but it's not important because I guess it was just uneventful. It was fine. And then he has his great boss. I mean, who doesn't want a boss like that who's like, let's shut the shit down. We got some partying to do, and they got a fiddler, and they're dancing, and they got food. They got all this shit, okay? We should all have bosses like that, right? We should all have bosses like that. But the point is, I think for this section, I just think that, you know, the fact that Scrooge is, what's interesting to me is, don't we wish we all could have like a bird's eye view of our past as an adult? And that's something I'd like to encourage you to think about, but in a good way. I know the last episode was more about looking at your trauma or drama and trying to forgive people, but I want to leave this today. I'm not going to go too much in the woo with this story, because I think that we get what the woo-woo is. But I mean, there's enough to say that now that you're older, think about a time in your life you really enjoyed it and play it back in your mind. And I've done that for the past couple of months, certain things. And there's sometimes like the littlest things that have brought me joy. And I just want to encourage you to think about that and get that feeling of joy and that childlike wonder. And it might be something that happened 20 years ago when you were in college. But the feeling of the love that you received and the feeling of, you know, you being in a different time of your life where you were carefree perhaps and didn't have certain responsibilities. And I just want to encourage you to do that today or the next week or whatever, and to like appreciate those times and hold on to them and resonate with it, and like let your body feel those emotions of joy and happiness and love. Like think of the one moment in life that you felt the most loved, and hold on to that feeling and just play that that memory over and over and over again and just see where it brings you. You may end up crying. I mean, the feeling of love is such a strong feeling, and that if we could call up love to our heart and our body and our cells more than the feeling of fear and anger and hate, you know what? The world will be vibrating at a much different level. So today, that's all I'm going to encourage you to do, because as you can see, when Scrooge saw his sister, he felt love. And when Scrooge was reading that book and escaping the world into Alibaba and Robinson Crusoe, he felt like all this excitement and childlike wonder. And then he was like so excited that he got to see Fezziwig again. I just want you to feel that today. And if you could, if you wanted to, challenge yourself every day to take a different memory that has brought you so much joy. Start your day with that. Hold on to that feeling, and let's vibrate that out to the world. First for ourselves, and then to the world. And let's see how lives change, and our lives change, and how other people's lives change. Good God, sometimes I can't talk. I just go, and you know what I mean? I don't know. But anyway, my friends, that's what I'm going to leave you here with today. So think of amazing memories that bring you into a feeling of love and stability and feeling so good. And just hold on to that feeling and vibrate with that. So my friends, I'm wishing you are well and staying healthy and blessed and sane and all that good stuff. And I'm sending you tons of light and love and peace and joy and bliss and magic and fairy dust and prosperity, abundance, and all the good stuff that you deserve, because you are worthy, you are enough, and you know what? You are loved, and someone is thinking of you. And my friends, until we read again. Okay, bye.